Absolutely.
Well, I'm going to ask, and since we're live, I'm just going to ask our guest live. Um, Jenny, can you hear me? Oh, there you are.
Hi. Yeah,
Hey, Jenny.
how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm happy to be here with you tonight.
Thank you for being here with us. We're going to say a couple prayers, and then we'll do a 30, well, probably a minute long, to catch up everybody on sort of where we are in the conversation. Is this our fourth?
It's our fourth.
Our fourth conversation on how Christians are called to care for the earth. And then we're really excited to get to talk to you about your journey.
Great.
So everybody, I want to introduce Jenni Scoggin. She's our special guest for the night, and we'll visit with her a lot more in just a couple minutes. Right now, let's offer two prayers to begin our time together. We've been beginning our prayers with, or beginning our time with prayers from different countries each time, and so this time we will begin prayers from our prayer book, the United States, for the first time. The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Let us pray. O Heavenly Father, who has filled the world with beauty, open our eyes to behold your gracious hand in all your works, that rejoicing in your whole creation, we may learn to serve you with gladness for the sake of him through whom all things were made, your Son, Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen. Almighty God, we thank you for making the earth fruitful, so that it might produce what is needed for life. Bless those who work in the fields, give us seasonable weather, and grant that we may all share the fruits of the earth, rejoicing in your goodness. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. All right, so here's our 1 minute round the world catch up. So we've been taking as our starting point Ruth Valerio's good book, Life, which is the Archbishop of Canterbury's Lent book for 2020. And she has been using as our starting point the book of Genesis and creation. And so, for example, we have had these two slides, which we visited in other sessions about the different days of creation and the different ecological concerns that Christians might well tend to kind of using each day as a starting point. So exploring access to electricity and clean and affordable energy on the day that we remember God creating the light, and so on and so forth. So going down there and kind of using that as a crowbar to open our imaginations for the different issues there are, and also how those issues are issues that we all participate in from our different corners of the globe. Last week, we had a lot of fun exploring the stories of different ministries. This was Bonton Farms in South Dallas, where they're starting urban agriculture to help be an oasis in the middle of a food desert in South Dallas. We visited the story of Plainsong Farm, which is run by a priest and farmer, Nurula Parish in Michigan. And we talked about how the first one was local, this one was national, and that it takes place in a different part of the nation, but all farming is kind of local. But also that her dream is to network and support, build a network of Christians, especially who are vocal about how their faith is connected, the role of their faith plays in their care for the earth. And then we looked at an international community, Arocha, last week also, that is bringing communities of faith together with science and getting people kind of on the ground with the creation near to them and sometimes far from them. And then we ended, and this is the connecting point to our guest, we ended with these questions. What do you see and hear in these stories? How do you see faith connecting to their work in different ways? How do they articulate that? What local, national, and international communities and efforts do you see speaking values good for the earth, good for caring for the earth and each other? And in that question, we're remembering Norman Wurzbach, who talked about how even our eating communicates values. We're always communicating values. And so what are the values that we would, especially as Christians, like to be true of our relationships with each other and also with our relationships to the land? Because Norman Wurzbach, Norm says that those values are inevitably going to overlap. So how we think about the land, how we treat the land is going to be how we think about and care for our neighbor, both out of habit, but also because our neighbor is impacted by our treatment of the land. So that kind of forces us to think about our values. And then where do you see the values you like being implemented locally, nationally, and internationally? And then having observed where good things are happening, who in your community could you reach out to in order to learn more about their work, how their work works, and why they do it? So Jenni, that's what brings us to you.
Right.
So Jenni Scoggin is, am I getting this right? You are a forest teacher at
Yes.
Friends School.
Yep.
I should do a more proper introduction, but what is a forest teacher?
Well, our school is a Quaker school, and we have 4 different classes in the lower school, the elementary, first, second, third, and fourth years or grades. And so each of the classes have a different name. And so our class is called Forest. There's another one called Mountain. There's another one called Sky and River. So yeah.
That's awesome. So you're the forest teacher at Friends School.
Mm-hmm.
You've been a dear friend of our family for longer than I can remember now, which is wonderful. I guess we all ended up in Chapel Hill, Durham area about the same time. A little bit ago, a few years ago.
It's been a while. We're getting old.
and in working with your school community, somehow y'all decided it was a good idea to start raising bees together.
Yeah.
How did y'all discern that? Like, what led to that? How do you start a chain of dominoes that leads to a bunch of grade school kids having bees as part of their curriculum and their schoolwork?
Well, it started in a very simple way. As a teacher, I was getting these things in the mail for grants that you can apply for. And I got this one for bees, and I applied for it and I didn't get it. And I didn't know much about what I was getting into when I was applying for that grant. But in the process, I did a whole bunch of research about bees. And when I didn't get the grant, I was very disappointed because I just learned how amazing this could have been. And so the next year I applied for a different grant, and we got the grant. And our community is really supportive. Our school teaches 3-year-olds all the way through seniors in high school. We have they go all the way through. And they've always been very supportive of teachers taking risks and thinking about, how can our kids learn, and particularly in nature? Like, can we get our kids into the forest? Can we get our kids connecting with the earth in some ways? So this had never been brought to the community before, but across the street from us at the same time, and you may be familiar with this, Jonathan, as a Duke grad, but Duke Farms is across the street from us. And they have anywhere from 7 to 12 hives over there. And the Durham Beekeepers Association keep those hives up. Well, in the process of all of this, trying to get the grant, I met somebody that takes care of those hives, and they said, why don't you let us pay for you to take the beekeepers course? You're an educator, and we want you to be a bee evangelist, basically. You're a teacher. I think you could do this. So I took the course to get certified, and then we received the grant from a local electric company that gives grants every single year. And we got our first 2 hives started last year. And then Piedmont Electric, that's the electric company that gave us the grant, contacted me again this spring because I kept sending them pictures of what we were doing, and they just loved it. They're like, please, please, please apply for more money. We want to give you more money. I'm like, you do? They're like, yeah, we want to give you more money. So we applied for another grant, and they gave us more money to increase an outdoor classroom space and pollinating garden, and more bee equipment for the kids. And so it's kind of grown into this thing, and several teachers have said, hey, can we take classes? We've got several local county beekeeper organizations, and I've learned that if you get into these organizations, like all these beekeepers that have been doing it for several years, they're just dying to share and they'll show up at your house and
Oh my gosh.
so I've only been doing this for like a year and a half. I feel like I have barely dipped my toe in the water. They're the beekeepers that I talk to, they know so much, and they'll still tell you that every year they learn something different and something new. So yeah, that's how we got started, and we're still going. So
that's awesome. Where did that instinct to apply for that first grant come from? Like, what was your first attraction to bees and wanting to be involved with bees?
Well, so my father used to keep bees when I was a little girl, and I was always told, you stay away from the hives. Like you're going to get stung. You just need to stay away from them. And so, so in the back of my mind, I've always viewed bees as this really creature you should be fearful of. And the stinging aspect of it was always at the forefront of my mind. But the more that I learned about them, the more I realized that there's this tiny community that's happening inside of the hive, that if you understood more about them, you would understand your fear of them would kind of lessen a little bit. It's not to say that you don't get stung. I've gotten stung several times going in, but there's a lot happening in such a small, tiny community. And it has such big connections to the wider world. It's just kind of I always tell the kids that, it's like looking into, kids like to read those books about like tiny creatures that live, like fairies that live under mushrooms, or like thinking about things that are really, there's worlds going on underneath. And you get into the hive and there's like amazing things happening inside of the hive. I don't know.
Can you give us an example?
Yeah, like well, I have some pictures. Can I share my screen with you to show you some pictures?
Absolutely, sure.
Okay, I thought that it would be easier for me to talk through it if I showed you some pictures.
Oh, that's awesome.
Give me just a second and I'll share my screen with you. Hold on just a minute. Can you see that?
Yes.
We can.
Oh my goodness.
So this is a picture, this is when we first started. This is the first group of students that we took over. And this is actually at the Duke Farm, Jonathan.
Okay.
This is before our hives came in, and we wanted to get the kids used to the hives. I had a couple of kids that were completely freaked out by bees. And by the time we finished, I don't know if you can see this little girl over here holding a bee on her glove.
Yes. Yeah.
In the spring, or in North Carolina, probably about April or May, the bees actually do what you call, you can get close to them and they'll land on you, and you can almost like you're tickling them. They're happy. They're in kind of this really wonderful mood. And it's the best time to take anybody into the hive that might at all be fearful of the hive. But by the end of this, she was asking me, can I please go out and hold the bees again? Can I, she was very into it. And so breaking down stereotypes about things in nature is so powerful. I think there are so many metaphors for life when you go into the hive. I think it's true of like getting to know people that are different than you, and it breaks down the walls, and you start to understand, oh, okay, so this is how this works, or this is, this is why, or this is what this creature is doing, and so this connection with nature is so powerful for the kids. So that was our first crew of bee keepers, young ones. This is a picture, actually this is a video of my son. I don't know if I can get to play. This is when we did our first installation on campus, and my son is 6 in this picture. I don't know if I can play that video, but he was all geared up and went into the hive with us. And I was so proud of him because he was really scared at first, but he went right up to it. And anytime you go into the hive, you try to find the queen.
Yes.
If the hive does not have their queen, they won't last very much longer. They have to have the queen. The queen lays about 1,500 eggs a day. And a queen lives anywhere from 3 to 5 years. So if you do the math, I mean, that's over millions of bees that this queen has, right? Now, there are 3 types of bees. Real quick, I'll tell you about them. The queen, the worker bees, which are all female, and the drones, the males. The drones do not have stingers. Which I had, I if there's any bees that I can kind of find and let kids hold without, gloves or anything, they think that's so cool that they can hold that and not worry about being stung. But the workers, the drones don't do much. I hate to say, I always, the males, they're kind of, their only purpose is to, they mate with a different queen, like outside of the hive, and then their life is over.
Oh, wow.
I know. But they're very important to this whole process. They're a part of this puzzle. But the worker bees, they only live 5 to 7 weeks and then they die. And they have certain jobs that they do. And another metaphor for life is that the workers, they have all of these various jobs that they do. Like when they first are born, they are doing things like nursing the bees. They're like nurses to all of the baby bees that are being born. They're cleaning up the hive. They're rebuilding the comb. It's amazing how quickly they can go in. If I take a frame out and look at it and I break something, immediately they're all just like around it trying to fix it back together. They're very meticulous. And then as they go through their short life of 5 to 7 weeks, they turn into guards for the home, for the hive, and foragers. And oftentimes a bee will start to realize it's towards the end of their life, and they will try and be away from the hive when they die. But then you also have like undertaker worker bees in the hive. That's one of their roles, is to get rid of the bees who have passed away. So they all kind of have a role that they play to make sure that everything is running smoothly in the hive. And they work together. They have this consensus mind. And people think the queen kind of rules the roost, but all of the workers have a way of communicating, and they have a dance that they do to tell the other bees where to go forage. And it's like a figure 8, and however many 8s they do, there's like a mathematical formula of you need to go north, to take a left-hand turn right. It's fascinating what they can do.
You were mentioning the hive mind, and the queen is not like doesn't get to rule with an iron fist. You told me one time, I'm wondering if you can tell us about the royal jelly and how they can mutiny the queen.
Oh yeah. If they decide that they don't think the queen is doing her job, they can create a queen cell and raise a new queen that they hope will rise up and take out the other queen. It's crazy. Yeah. And they feed, in order for a larvae to become, or for that to become a queen, that particular cell is fed only royal jelly. Like the worker bees will only feed that particular cell royal jelly. It's crazy, isn't it? It's like
super crazy.
Let me go to the next slide, because you can see. So this is a frame that I pulled. And can you find the queen on here? Do you think you can?
If we point, you can't see us pointing, so we're not.
I know. Well, the queen is marked on this one. She's got a red dot on her.
Right on the head.
Yes.
Keith picked it out. Did you all at home pick it out?
There, right there. So the queen is the largest, and about, if you were to hold your, the inch like of your thumb, the end of your thumb up from your knuckle, that's probably about the size of the queen. Okay. And every year they change the color. People catch their queens and they snip their wings because they don't want the queen to exit. Because if the queen leaves, the whole hive is going to swarm. They're going to leave.
Oh wow!
So that's the way that the beekeepers do that, and in the UK. But we don't clip. I've never clipped the wings of the queen before. But this queen, this hive actually that you're looking at right now, they didn't make it through the winter. They had what is one of the biggest threats to the hives right now, which is the varroa mite. And It's almost like if you were to imagine a human, like one of us having a tick the size of a dinner plate on our back, that's like the scale of what it would be for a bee to have this mite attached to them. And the mite is like it sucks the blood out of the bees and it gives them viruses. And it's just it's something we have to, as beekeepers, go in constantly and treat the bees for. Because we're finding they can't overcome it themselves. So bees are domesticated. They rely on humans to keep interacting with them and taking care of them. And then also there's the use of pesticides and various things that are happening in our crops, and also crops that are not being varied to be producing pollinating plants, right?
Right.
You got full fields of corn, right? It's not a pollinating plant. And so if bees don't have the places to go to get what they need, then it's difficult for them to continue and bring things back to their hive. So
a couple of things in what you just said jumped out at me. One is bees are obviously very social, but they're social with humans too. Like they're counting on us at this point.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
And then the role of being in partnership, providing for, and then also providing habitation to in terms of the land around them. You shared something with me yesterday. How long do experts think we would do without bees?
Well, I think it was Einstein that said if the bees were ever to go extinct, we would probably, he says, I give humans 3 or 4 years and then we're done.
So it's very much a reciprocal needing each other.
It is. It's one of the statistics I give my kids is that 1/3 of our food that we consume is relying on pollinators. Any of the strawberries, the blueberries. I have a friend who in North Carolina, of all places, our zones have changed a bit. She has a lemon tree, and she had set it out on her porch, hoping that maybe some bees would come and help with the pollinating. But she's been taking a paintbrush and trying to get things to pollinate, because the pollinators are really. I feel like you're kind of lucky if you see them around. But fortunately, I do think there's a lot of people who are starting to get into beekeeping, or even if you're not a beekeeper, like realizing that we need to be planting plants that would encourage pollinators to come to places. There's a lady out of Durham who's created a bee superhighway. It's like 60-mile stretch on businesses in the RTP area, which is a Research Triangle Park area. There are beehives on top of company buildings, and it goes all the way from Raleigh to Atlanta.
What?
And the idea is to have this place where there's like, you could track, like there's all these bees that come all the way through the, North Carolina to Georgia. So I think people are realizing that these tiny creatures are so important to how everything is connected, and how to humans, to everyone. I think about you, Jonathan, you were talking to me yesterday about like, well, how does this connect to the church? And do you know the prayer about like our fragile earth, our tiny island home, or something like that?
Yes, Eucharistic prayer T.
Yes, yeah. And we didn't do that prayer very often, but so sometimes when we do it, it kind of in our church, it was like my ears would hear it in a fresh new way. And I just feel like the bees, anytime that I go into the hive, it's just a reminder of how tiny even we are, but how much God cares for us, and how much he is concerned with tending to us, and just how there's a connection there of kind of me as being caring for the bees. There's definitely a connection and a through line there for me of like how fragile life is, and how blessed and how much love is coming from God to his creation through all of this. So
I love that. And I'm trying to remember. I don't know, and someone maybe who watches this later will know, but I don't know. Timothy would for sure know. But an earlier version of the Exultet at the Easter Vigil included bees and honey and as an integral part of it. Uh,
Yeah. Oh, speaking of honey, I have one more picture for you, Jonathan.
yeah.
Unless I'm interrupting you. Okay, so this was our hives right before the hurricane that hit last fall. We had to strap them down.
Oh gosh.
Yes. But this was the first time that we processed honey, and it was so heavy. I think we weighed it at like 35 pounds. Like when you lifted that box up, it was full of honey, and you just you take that big knife and scrape all the comb off. Oh my, is the best, the sweetest smell ever. And then that's my son. But there's all of the honey that we were able to pull from that one. We only had one hive that had enough honey that we could take from them, but I'll stop sharing with you. So
No, that's amazing.
Oh,
so,
We want to let you, if you're watching on the interwebs and all that stuff, we want to let you know that we're going to take some questions from Jenni. So if you have your own thoughts or questions, please feel free to share in the comments, and we'll get to monitoring that here in just a second. Yeah, anything you want to ask about bees, connectedness, faith, it's all fair game. Father Keith, did you have any questions or things you want to know about bees from our expert while we have her?
no, I think this is excellent. And it's one of the things we're talking about at the church of having a bee farm. We would love to do that. I think, and I really would encourage people. One of the things I do is I love gardening and looking for specific flowers for bees and butterflies. So that they, like you're talking about this highway, so that they can, feed on that. So I think it's just excellent.
that's great.
Jenni, what you were saying earlier made me think of Wendellberry, because I'm just never needing too much of an excuse to think about him. But in an article he wrote called "Health is Membership," he said, "I believe that the community, in the fullest sense, a place in all its creatures, is the smallest unit of health, and that to speak of the health of an isolated individual is a contradiction in terms." And I've been thinking a lot about that, obviously, with the coronavirus and everything, and how we're all doing our part and being creative about how we connect with each other and all that. But that a piece that might have been lost, except for the way you've been highlighting it with us, like community in the fullest sense, a place in all its creatures, so not just us. And the health of the bees, the health of the land, our own health are connected, so that just to talk about our own health is a contradiction in terms. So that's something that I'm taking away from what you've shared with us. Let's check in with you guys are quiet.
They're behaving.
Oh no, here they go. So the hive mind is a real thing. Like people talk about it, but it's a real thing.
It's a real thing. Yeah.
It's not just a funny way of saying something.
No, it's a real thing. They have consensus on how they're going to move about, if they're going to swarm, if they're going to split up, all that.
How many times would you say you've been stung?
At least 6. I mean,
A year and a half, only 6 times?
I feel that's pretty good. I mean, yeah.
I was going to say, help our case.
It's not bad.
What in that was? Oh, there was another question in there. I forgot what it was. Yeah. Terry wants to get down to brass tacks. Terry says, what permits are needed? How do you get permission to have bees next to someone else's house? And I guess that's another way of like saying, how do you talk about, like, you were right across from Duke Farm, so it wasn't unprecedented, but did you have neighbors or parents that were concerned?
Yes, we did.
How did you talk to them?
Well, I think that education was the key in making people understand how bees, why bees would sting. And So let me answer the first question about
The permits.
permits, maybe. And I don't know a lot about Texas, but it's my understanding that in North Carolina, I mean, the bees are animals that we're concerned about going extinct. And so it's my understanding that I don't think people can prohibit them necessarily. I don't know if you quote
Oh,
me
that's
on
interesting.
that, but well, for example, in our neighborhood, it's not something that my HOA could say, no, you can't have those. However, I do think that as a responsible beekeeper, you should understand how to care for them so that they're not a nuisance to the neighborhood. It's important that you have enough space to keep bees, or that you're thinking about the space that they're occupying. They typically take about a 10-foot flight path out the front. So you don't want to put them in a place where it's going to fly right out into your neighbor's backyard. And, that's not a great idea. But there are a lot of like places in Durham, I know, and in RTP that keep them on rooftops, and they're out of the way, and their flight path isn't interfering with anyone. You kind of want to be aware of if your neighbor has a swimming pool. I think it's a neighborly thing to go and talk with them about that, and then also make sure that your bees have a water supply close by to them, like a bird bath or something, so that they're not going and drinking from the pool. That type of, just kind of things like that. But having them in the school was a big discussion that we had. And funny enough, we decided to put the hives at the entrance of the school instead of hiding them somewhere.
Oh, wow.
We put them, they're very visible, like right when you drive into campus. The bees are at the front. There's like a huge a circle that you can drive around in the parking lot. And there's like an island. It's pretty big, and it gives more than 10 feet of a flight path for them. But what our thought was that if we made them visible enough that people would and put up signs that, told people, this is a flight path for bees. You should not be in this area. That our hope is that people would be respectful of that, and they wouldn't come into that area, because bees are not, a lot of people think that bees are just going to come out and go after you. The reasons that they would do that is if you were in their area and they felt like you were trying to come into their hive and rob or take things or things like that. But the times that I've had kids get stung, honestly, have been on the playground if they're leaning down and a bee is collecting something from like the clover, and a kid accidentally knelt on a bee, but we're out in the woods and we have copperheads and we've got, there's all manner of insects in the woods. So our thought process was that we're in nature, and the bees are not right on our playground. They're not right where people are going to be. And we all need to have a healthy respect for them. And so that's kind of how we got around it. And Duke Farms, their biggest concern was, are you going to treat your bees for varroa mite? Are you going to treat them? Because if we didn't, then it would have an impact on their hives. So we also have been very, on our campus, we have posted like where, if you do get stung, each of these places have EpiPens and, care for bee stings. But and then I also educate the kids. I mean, I think education is a huge thing for the community, just to know how to behave around a beehive and be respectful of that.
That has emerged as one of my main takeaways from what you've shared with us, Jenny, is just like it's gotten me thinking in a whole different way about where I'm not educated, where sort of the default assumption, the posture of distance, fear, and then what you shared earlier about like the kids' wonder of like what's underneath, the whole invisible world underneath a mushroom kind of thing.
Yeah.
There are all these invisible worlds, but in the absence of understanding, a lot of us just think of like bees as Jaws with wings, like the movie Jaws with wings. So like they're chasing it, but they're not that.
No, they're not. Well, I think they get a bad rap too, because there are also other stinging insects. There's also other stingers out there, like, got all manner of wasps, and I don't know what all you have in Texas, but we've got Yellow
There's one.
jackets up here. I mean,
That one, I forget what it's called. Beck and I call it just like a devil bug. It's like bright red and it's like 2 inches, and it's meant to sting and kill small mammals. It is
here.
I think that's a cattle killer
cattle killer.
or cow killer.
Cattle killer. That's quite a name. Yeah, no. And if you actually do see a honeybee up close, they just look very innocent. In fact, when they sting you, they die. And a lot of people don't realize that. I mean, they basically, I don't never had a chance to talk to a bee about it, but I bet you it's not like their goal in life to go around stinging people.
It's not their ambition.
No.
I've talked to a few of them, you know. So.
No.
Well, I can't thank you enough for this time, Jenny. This has been wonderful.
I want to show my starter kit.
Oh, you want to show your starter kit?
Yeah, look, this is
What
my
do you have?
He's got a bee. It's not showing up, Keith.
Oh, it's not showing. I can't see it. You'll have to have Jonathan send it to me in text. You have a bee starter kit?
Yeah, one bee.
He has one bee.
You have one bee.
Yeah, let's start with one.
I love it.
But this has been so great because there has been conversation about our land, like beekeeping being a possible use of it. But also when we think about creation care, there are just so many opportunities to recognize those places where we feel a little fearful or just find ourselves at the limits of our own knowledge or information, and how like a simple conversation can turn into transform fear into fascination. Because right now I'm just like all in fascinated. And I didn't tell you this yet, Jenny. My father-in-law got me the Beekeeper's Bible. It's supposed to be really good. But so I'm getting geared up, and you can see right behind Father Keith is my bees and honey sign. So
that is awesome. Oh, Jonathan, I do hope that you're able to get bees.
You'll have to figure it out.
The first time that I actually helped install a hive and just came out of the books, I thought I was going to pass out. It was like so exciting, and also like, I was a little bit freaked out by it, but I would love, you've got to videotape it, or, I'm so old school, videotape it. You have to video your experience, because
yes, we'll put it on a VHS and
put it on VHS and send it to me.
I hope Vicki Kinsler is watching this tonight, because.
Well, Jenny, it looks like you might have frozen on us.
Uh-oh.
Oh, no, you unfroze.
Okay.
But before we lose you again, let me just say thank you. This has been really wonderful.
You're welcome. It's so good to see you, Jonathan.
Good to see you too.
You guys have a good one. We love Jonathan so much.
It's all right.
We love y'all too. Give my love to your family.
I will. Bye.
Bye. All right, friends. So we're almost out of time. We got a little bit of time. And so we're going to go from the slightly scary to the terrifying. We're going from bees to bats. Do you like bats, Father Keith?
I actually do.
Do you?
Yeah, we had them in Austin. It was awesome.
Let's see. Let's get Annie Melton. Are you there?
Yes.
Can I ask you to start your video? Annie Melton.
Hey.
All right. You were going to talk to us about bats. Can you give me a second to get your slides up?
Yeah.
Or do you want me to show it still?
Sure.
All right. Annie Melton's going to talk about bats. If you guys have your questions about bats, please, I know you didn't see this coming. This is a little bit of a curveball we're throwing at everybody, but here is Annie, and here's a bat. You get bonus points if you can tell which is which. Just kidding, Annie. So Annie, we're talking about noticing things in creation and learning more about things that we might have been fearful about. One of my favorite stories about you, there was a bat at St. Francis House, and all of us were freaking out, including this like 20-something-year-old boyfriend of one of our house fellows. You remember this?
Yes.
And we opened the doors and we let the bat out, and you were calmly lecturing him on how he had nothing to be afraid of.
Correct.
How did you get interested in bats?
Well, it started one day. I went to school and my friend had heard it on the radio that they were being like endangered by white nose syndrome, which is a sickness that causes a fungus to grow on their nose.
Ugh.
And other stuff like in their body and in their wings. And my friend was like, we should try to stop this. So she got a bunch of us together, and it was like the whole class or something like that. And then we called a bat biologist at the Department of Natural Resources.
Okay.
And we decided that we would contact her and ask her more about this and see how we could stop this or try and help to stop this. And she said that we could try by like counting bats, as that's really important because they need to know how many bats are in a bat house where they live normally a year, so they know how many bats are dying each year.
Mm. You started an organization, right?
Yeah.
And tell us about your specific organization.
So we called ourselves the Bat Crew, and we chose a few of us. There were I think there were 6 of us, and we went to the Department of Natural Resources, and we spoke with the bat biologist, and we found out that there is a cure to it, which is ultraviolet light. As white nose syndrome happens in a cave,
Okay.
and they hibernate. It can be found on the cave walls, and you need, when they fly out of the cave, it can kind of get into their brain and have them not eat and stuff, and then they can actually die because of it.
Oh.
So scientists were making ultraviolet light in the cave, so as they fly out, it zaps them and kills the fungus.
Is that what you guys raised money for?
Well, we sent it to the organization, the Department of Natural Resources, I believe, and we actually gave it to the bat biologist so she could use it with her friends. And we were supporting them with raising ideas for helping the bats get saved from this disease.
Cool. And how do you think about creation, caring for bats or other parts of creation as a part of what Christians are called to do?
Well, I think it's in Genesis, it said that we have dominion over the creation. And I think that we are supposed to take care of it and make sure it's in well shape.
That makes me think of what Ellen Davis said about creation. That word dominion means we serve and preserve instead of squashing it. And it makes me think of what Aunt Jenny said a little bit ago about how the bees depend on us and we depend on the bees.
Mm-hmm.
What about bats do you find, what's something bats do that I might not know about that you find really interesting?
Well, I think one of the interesting things is they eat, I think this is cool, that they, depending on what kind of bat, they eat all sorts of things. I think that's really cool. I think they're frugivores that eat fruit, but they can't eat citrus because it's bad for them. But then there are insectivores that eat ants and flies and stuff like that.
And they're bats that eat humans, right?
No, they're vampire bats. They only they eat mainly blood from horses, sheep, and cows, and they're only in South America. There are only 2 species, and they also don't kill the animals. They just make a little hole in their leg and then suck out some blood. They don't kill it. And the animal also doesn't wake up because they're sleeping. It's at nighttime when it happens.
Oh, that's spooky. That's super creepy. All right, Annie, last question for you, and then we'll let you get on with your evening. Are you at all surprised at the journey from learning about bats to realizing a need? When you look, did you ever think the first time you learned about bats with your friends that you would end up making a bat crew and raising money and becoming activists in your local community?
Well,
and does that ever make you nervous to learn anything about anything else again? Because you might find yourself doing the same thing.
It was kind of a long process, and to be honest, there was a lot of waiting. And we had to do things that were pretty easy, like waiting to get a hold of the bat biologist on the phone. But then we also had to do something like one time we drove to the bat biologist to give them the check and she talked to us. But then we also set up a time, it was about a week after school ended, and we went to this park where you can take hikes and things, and there was a bat house, and we had to be patient, and we were doing bat counting where we count how many bats there were. But it was a good time, but just not like the best time, because the season where they have babies, it was like had just happened, so then they usually stay in their house for a little while after their babies are born. So we had to do a lot of waiting.
I love that you shared that about the waiting, Annie, because I think sometimes people think there are people who are doing good things and there are people who are like not doing good things, but like it's not an on or off switch. It's like you guys were waiting, you were in progress and process, you were doing what you could at that time, and it just kind of slowly grows and builds on itself until one day you look back and you're like, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it sometimes felt like we weren't doing anything, but the best thing that happened, I think, happened with a lot of waiting, because you have to wait for things a lot of the time.
Has she ever been to Austin?
So, Annie, that is probably, I know that you say things that teach me every day, but that is something I'm going to carry with me. This is a good time to be reminded about the importance and the fruitfulness of waiting. We're not always, most of the things that happen without waiting aren't the things that matter. So thank you. I really appreciate it, Annie.
Thank you, Annie. It was great.
We're going to wrap up our session. I had inaccurately said this was our last session, but we have one more Wednesday. And we've got some good guests lined up. We're going to have some parishioners talking with us about kind of processing all of this. We're going to be processing information that we've received these last weeks, some of these stories that we've heard. I hope all of us will carry with us sort of the instinct to look at someone doing something that seems a little strange, like stepping close to people or creatures that cause us fear until they like learn a little bit more of the story. And fear turns into fascination. But we're going to be looking specifically with some parishioners at concrete things that families or congregations can begin to do in their local context, like right away. So we're going to we're going to empower each other with tools for action through some more storytelling and some interview guests. So that's next week, same bat time. Get it, Annie? Same bat time, same bat channel. And yeah, thank you everybody for your comments and feedback and for joining us tonight. The next thing we will be doing via social media in an official way will be our Sunday service. Well, Sunday school. Actually, this is not true.
So why are you telling them that?
So Sunday school and Sunday service are both happening, but we're looking at doing the makeup for our previous Sunday school class when we hit Zoom's technical difficulties. We'll be doing that Friday, probably early afternoon, around 1 o'clock or so, but we'll send out a note about that. So Friday, Sunday school makeup class, and then we'll do Sunday school and worship 9:30 and 10:30 next week. Father Keith, anything you want to say to the congregation before we let everyone go for the night?
Well, again, I want to thank Annie very much. This was awesome. Again, for all of you, I am just thankful for y'all. We love you very, very much. And we look forward to worshiping with you again. Please, again, remember, if you have any needs during what's going on right now, please contact us. Don't hesitate. We are here for you. We are family. And so if you have any kind of issue that you need to be helped with, please let us know. But again, we love you.
Love you guys. We'll see you soon.